Hello, this is Catherine from Accelerated Reader, reading books for you. Today I will be reading Chapter 5 from Mark Vardy and the School of Ninjas by C.J.T. Wilkins. Before I begin reading, I would like to give a big thanks to the author for sending me this book to read on my channel. In the description below, I've included links where you may find and purchase this book. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Chapter 5. Mark, Charlie, and Lucy hurried off after the gardener. "Excuse me, sir," said Mark, as they drew closer, a little out of breath from running after him. The gardener stopped, turned, and smiled at them. "Hello, Lucy," he said. "Have you brought some friends to meet me?" "Yes, Mr. Liu," she said. "This is Mark and Charlie. They are going to become police officers." "And ninjas," chimed in Charlie with a big grin. "Is that your horse?" asked Mark, looking up at the big brown horse who stood at Mr. Liu's side and regarded him with equal curiosity. "She is my companion and partner," said Mr. Liu. He turned to the horse. "Tiger Lily, I would like you to meet young Mark here." He gestured to Mark, and the horse stretched out her nose and sniffed him. Satisfied, she looked at Mr. Liu. "And Charlie," he gestured again, and once again the horse stretched her nose out, and this time sniffed Charlie's hair before whiffling it with her lips. He giggled. "And of course you know Lucy," said Mr. Liu to the horse. Lucy stepped forward and smoothed the satin coat on Tiger Lily's neck. For a moment all this seemed normal. Then a slightly confused look appeared on Mark's face. He had just been introduced to a horse. He didn't know a lot about horses, but something seemed unusual here. "Do you love gardens?" he asked the boys. "This one is jolly neat, sir," said Mark. "But do you love it?" asked Mr. Liu. "You have to love something to truly appreciate it." Mark put his head on one side, thinking about his reply. Finally, he settled on, "I don't really know it, Mr. Liu." "Well, that's the wisest thing you could have said," said Mr. Liu. "You must love to appreciate, and you must know to love. So we must start with your getting to know." "Thank you, sir, but I have come here to learn to be a police officer and a warrior like my father. I don't think there will be time for gardening." Mr. Liu smiled. There must always be time for gardening, even if that just means spending time appreciating it. "Tell me, have you ever done the noticing?" Mark and Charlie shook their heads. "What's the noticing?" they asked. Lucy smiled. She knew all about this. Mr. Liu looked at Lucy. "Tell them about the noticing, Lucy," she answered. "The noticing is when you walk around a garden and notice everything that has changed, everything that has grown, everything that has died, the little creatures that live in the garden, the new buds, the freshly opened flowers, all the new growth." "Why would you do that?" asked Mark. Mr. Liu answered, "A garden is a system in flux and growth at all times. every day is different, and each member of the garden is different every day. But the garden grows and changes at a speed you can keep up with. Plants will never grow faster than you can walk. So you can take your time. Really see everything around you and decide if you need to do something. That's a bit like being a warrior, isn't it? But it sounds awfully slow, said Mark. Warriors are fast. That's a matter of perception, said Mr. Liu. You must master the very slow before you can master the very fast. Time isn't what you think it is. If you are to become a great warrior, you must learn about time. You cannot control what you don't understand. As he said this, he began wandering along a flower bed, touching the flowers, pulling off flower heads that had died, cutting back bits of foliage. His horse walked alongside him, nibbling at the grass. It's a lovely day, isn't it? He said to Tiger Lily. She looked up a moment. He stroked her neck, and then she dropped her head down and carried on eating grass. Why do you talk to your horse? Asked Charlie curiously. It would be a bit strange to have a friend and not talk to them, wouldn't it? Said Mr. Liu. I talk to her to find out what she is thinking and feeling. But it isn't all words. There are different ways to talk with horses. What are they? Asked Charlie. It's a big subject, and there is too much to tell before your dinner time, said Mr. Liu. I think I would like to learn some gardening, sir, said Mark, and how to talk to horses. Come another day, and I will tell you some more. You had better go back to the house for dinner now, though. Goodbye, Mr. Liu, they all said, and headed back towards the house. Mark looked over his shoulder. The big brown horse was watching him intently. Goodbye, Tiger Lily, he called back. Mr. Liu smiled and turned to Tiger Lily and whispered something to her. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for Chapter 6. Don't forget to like and subscribe. In the description below, I've included links where you may find and purchase this book.